keeps it interesting by letting down their drivers. Sainz has twice as many podiums as Hamilton for this year. Tsunoda most likely is out of F1 after end of this year. Let's discuss the Qatar Grand Prix and everything around it. So this was a sprint weekend. However, it doesn't matter much, just because the main action and of course all the drama was in the race. And probably through the discussion we will go back to the sprint race and sprint qualifying and so on, but let's address the elephant in the room, and that being McLaren. I had to give, let's say, hats off to Zak Brown and Andrea Stella, because after the race, in the first interview, the first thing they said, it was specifically Zak Brown, he said, "We made a wrong decision." So hats off to them for admitting that. But by this wrong decision which they made, and obviously I'm talking about the not pitting under safety car, basically it made the championship interesting. It made us look forward for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, and it made Max Verstappen's day and Red Bull's day. So in that sense they did a very good job, but of course from their perspective it's a total disaster. The reason, of course, is that if they would have pitted both of their drivers, either double stacking, well, that's what their only option actually, double stacking in that situation, they would have came out, let's say, first and second, or at least first and third as they were before pitting, and that's it. Obviously they made a gamble, they thought that they had the pace or whatever, and they, as Andrea Stella said in the post-race interview, they were afraid of, let's say, if they would have pitted and some of the pack would not have pitted, then they would come out in the traffic. So it was a gamble from their perspective, and here in this situation, when you are in the lead of the race, it plays in your disadvantage, because the driver who is hunting you has the opportunity to do the opposite, and that's what happened. So from Oscar's perspective, let's say he takes the gamble, he does not, or their team, his side of the garage does not decide to pit. Fine, so the next driver does the opposite. Now, with Lando, he's being third at that moment. This is a bit more tricky, because for Lando, now it's, if the team is pitting him, let's say splitting the pit strategies, then it could be looked as a is a favoritism. and this is the problem with McLaren at the moment. They have said out loud that they are not favoring one of the drivers, that both drivers are equal, and Zak Brown has even said that he more likely to lose the championship rather than choosing his favorite. At least that's what he says publicly. So splitting the strategies and ultimately seeing how this plays out, that would be a backlash to McLaren, saying that basically they have doomed Piastri. So basically whatever they do, unless they double stack and pit both drivers at the same time, they are doomed. And they obviously made the wrong choice. They made a choice to not to pit both drivers, which meant ultimately a disaster for them. And the worst part about this is that, of course, yes, Max capitalized it on and took the win. Oscar came home second. The worst part is that Lando didn't came home third. He came home fourth, and almost actually fifth. But there was a mistake by Antonelli. I actually watched the replay, and it was not that Antonelli just let him by. Antonelli made a mistake. I don't remember which turn it was, but he made a mistake. So ultimately Norris was able to overtake him. Fine. But so in this kind of scenario, when the second driver was pitting later, I'm now talking about the second pit stop or actually the third for McLaren. No, sorry, not third, the second, of course, the second pit stop. When they now pit and then Lando gets back on track behind Antonelli and behind Sainz. So this is a problem now. And for whatever reason, I don't know, did not have red tire or soft tire anymore, or why did they choose to go on the hards? I haven't checked. Maybe that was the reason. And they were talking about something that the hard being the fastest car the hard being the fastest tire. I don't get it, to be honest. In my opinion, again, not a strategist or anything, if they would have gone a little bit longer, at least for Lando, because they knew that by pitting him late, it would mean that he would come out behind Antonelli. So, in my opinion, the smart choice would have been to put him on softs, like to extend the stint as much as possible, and the second stint, and put him on softs. They didn't do it. They pitted him a little bit early, and then put him on hards. Again, is it to make both drivers equal, Piastri and Norris, meaning, so giving them the same chance, not trying to jinx anything, like to step into the favoritism thingy? I don't know, but they are not doing the right things at the moment, and this is the crucial moment for the drivers' championship, and it seems that they somehow managed to screw it up. Hats off to both drivers, actually. From driver's perspective, they did a very good job. Oscar in particular, he had a rough patch since Baku, so it has been what, 6-7 whatever races. So this weekend was basically flawless from his side, and he admitted also in the post-race interview, saying that this was one of his best weekends this year, if not overall in Formula One. So he did a great job. The team let him down. So at the crucial moment in the championship, when Oscar is trailing, and yes, you could put it on him, of course, he was in the lead of the championship, he had a bad patch, and so he lost basically the lead. But at the crucial moment when he needs the team to support him, the team lets him down. It's unfortunate. It's ironic in a way, but yeah, it's not looking good. And at least team owns it, and they admitted that they did wrong. So at least that's, well, I guess it's too obvious not to admit it. But yeah, that's the thing with the McLaren at the moment. And talking about and finishing about the McLaren, of course, because this is the big talking point, with let's say both cars being disqualified previously, and now both cars making wrong decisions. This is where this is the team sport, and if one of the, let's say, parties do not play or do not bring their A game, then it's done. And this is what we saw this weekend, unfortunately. And this time it was not the drivers, it was the team. Yes, finishing about the McLaren, next race. Now, it's interesting situation, because if we look at the championship, then Norris is still 12 points ahead of Verstappen, and then Piastri is 4 points behind Verstappen. So basically, 12 points, what does it mean? It means that Verstappen, let's assume the situation, right? The Verstappen is ahead or is leading the race. Let's assume that, or something like that happens next time. So potentially 25 points grabbing, right? And Norris is not in second, but let's assume that he's fourth. So 12 points for the fourth place. By this kind of a combination, that Verstappen is first and Norris is fourth, it means that Norris loses the championship. What happens if Piastri, for example, is second or third? So what do the McLaren do then? Do they give out? Because Piastri cannot win at that kind of situation. If Verstappen is first and then second comes Piastri, he cannot win it. So what happens now? Do they give out team orders to swap positions in order for Lando to get the championship fight? Because let's say that Verstappen's car dies at the last lap, and now they have made the swap. It's so crazy now what the McLaren will do, because obvious choice would be to favor one driver. And if Lando is in the lead and he does everything what needs to be done, there is no question. But if there are some things that jinx it, it means that, in my opinion, that would be the logical choice for the McLaren to give out team orders. But if there is a chance that Oscar, by any kind of situation, can still win, and he still can going into the last race, and because it's 16 points. So if by any kind of chance there is a chance that Oscar might also win the Drivers' Championship, then McLaren cannot issue team orders for the drivers on the track, right? Because up until last lap, anything can happen. The car can die, or give up. The PU can give up, or whatever. So up until last lap, in my opinion, McLaren cannot give out team orders, and they have put themselves into this kind of situation. And it's crazy. It's crazy that we think about this even, but that's the beauty of also. Of course, if you are a McLaren fan, then you are a little bit gutted right now. If you are Red Bull, or in particular Verstappen fan, then you are excited. So yeah, it's crazy situation with McLaren and all of this championship fight, and the more crazy part, of course, is that two drivers from McLaren can still get the Drivers' Championship, and it's interesting. We'll see what will happen next week already, but it's crazy. It's crazy that we are here even. And I think a couple of races ago we thought that, or let's say 8 races ago we thought, okay, I thought at least, that Piastri has the Drivers' Championship done and dusted, that's all. No, it didn't happen. Then we thought that, okay, Lando looks strong now. Lando has even 40 points or whatever lead, and then they get disqualified, and then it's not even or level, but it's like even possible for Verstappen to win the drivers. And then it's like, yeah, but still the McLaren looks strong in the qualifying, in the sprint race and everything. So it's like almost Lando can seal the deal this weekend and become the world champion. And now we are in a situation when it's actually realistically possible that none of that happens, and Verstappen takes the Drivers' Championship. So it's crazy. It's crazy that we are here three-way. The championship can go three ways, and we all are into it, and we are living through it and witnessing it. And this will happen all next week in Abu Dhabi. So very interesting season finale for F1 2025 season. I think Netflix's Drive to Survive will have wonderful material, and you cannot write that kind of drama even if you wish. Okay, so that's about McLaren and their championship fight. But of course, also another thing that we need to mention from this race was Sainz. And he benefited a lot, ultimately taking home P3. And now, as I said in the intro, that he has twice as many podiums as Hamilton this year, which is of course ironic because Hamilton has none and Sainz in Williams has 2. And not just that, to have it would be let's say, figuratively speaking, a nail in the coffin for Hamilton if he loses the P6 to Antonelli next week also, because they are separated by 2 points now. Hamilton has 152, I believe, yes, and Antonelli has 150. So if that happens again, if Antonelli outscores Hamilton by 2 points in the last race, then Antonelli takes P6, which would mean that not only Hamilton is performing worse as Sainz, who he replaced in Ferrari, but he would also lose to rookie who replaced him in Mercedes. So yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to think that way, but who would have predicted that, right? So it's we'll see how it pans out, of course, but it's close, and hats off to Antonelli also this weekend. He came home in the race P5 ahead of his more experienced teammate, meaning Russell, and Antonelli, except that last, what was it, 2 laps to go or something, that mistake what he made when he let pass Norris. Other than that, I think he had a good weekend. In the sprint not well. He was competitive. Also P5 in the P6 in the sprint, and qualified a little bit worse than his teammate, but in the race he took advantage of the first safety car, of the only safety car, and when double stacking him and Russell, he was the lead car at that moment, I believe, and Russell had to wait, so Russell lost out there. So, and also about this double stacking, it was also for Hamilton, and the same. You can say that, okay, Hamilton was awful, and he was basically this weekend again. I'm sorry. Well, Ferrari was awful, not just Hamilton. Ferrari took home only 4 points out of this weekend, and it was a sprint weekend, and they took home only 4 points, which just shows how bad is the car. They, they were the second. Sauber didn't take any points. Haas didn't get any points. Racing Bulls took 2 points, and then Alpine, also 0 points, and then comes Ferrari. So they are the 4th worst team this weekend. So there you have it. But talking about Hamilton and his pit stop under safety car, he gained a couple of positions. I don't know, was it 3, 4, whatever positions in those first 7 laps with soft tires. But then when he pitted, they were double stacking him, and Leclerc being the first one, and they double stack him, and he had to wait just because Leclerc, after pit stop, he went out, or was that Hamilton had to wait, I believe, because there was a lot of cars in the pit lane, so he couldn't drive out. He was staying in the pit box for some time, and again lost a couple of positions, and then he was in DRS train and couldn't do much. And also Leclerc, he was just stuck there. He couldn't do anything. He had a slightly better, of course, weekend and scored a couple of points, but still, awful. In the sprint, they didn't score anything, qualified bad. Of course, Hamilton worse than Leclerc, and in the race the same. Copy-paste from sprint. Gained a little bit just because there were 4 DNFs in the main race, so they climbed up a little bit the order, but still, it's Ferrari. It's awful for them. You can't do that, and they, as I said, they are 4th worst team if we look from the points. So yeah, as Hamilton said in the post-race interview, just get through this season, and then we need to do something, and he sounded like he knows what to do for 2026 in order to prepare and to have a better car. But we'll see. It's a big question mark at the moment, and of course it's also a big question mark for the future for Hamilton. as I said in the previous race, I think the first 5-6 races next year will show where Ferrari is, and this will probably decide also the future of their drivers. Either them wanting to leave the team, or the team wanting to get rid of them. But that's of course for the future. And talking about the future, unfortunately, as I said in my intro, Tsunoda seems that he will be out of Formula One for next week. He hasn't said it clearly. The only thing that he have said is that he knows his future, and it sounded like Hajar also knows his future, because he was like, was it post last race or was it before this race? I think it was before this Thursday drivers interviews or something. I mean, he was like smiling and he was happy. He didn't say anything, of course, but he was like in a good mood. So we kind of can figure it out that he has the call to be in the main team, and ultimately it means that Tsunoda is out of the race seat for 2026, and in his place comes Lindblad. He's currently he's the Red Bull Academy driver, currently in F2, being at the sixth place at the moment in the driver's standings for them. So that's the most likely scenario. It hasn't been officially announced, but it seems that this could happen. So it has been a career-ending, it seems, decision for Tsunoda to join Red Bull. I hope that this does not happen also for Hajar, and I hope that Hajar can make it better out of this opportunity. But second drivers in Red Bull, it's a tough position. We have lost a lot of good drivers there, so we'll see what will happen. So I think these are the main topics from this weekend. And obviously now next week, last race weekend of this year, where anything can happen. And as I have said already multiple times throughout this podcast, it's like between Norris, Verstappen and Piastri. Those three will fight out the Drivers' Championship. 12 points between the first and second, and then 4 points between second and third. So a lot can happen. And one bad decision, one, race incident, technical failure or whatever can decide the Drivers' Championship, and it's going to be devastating for some, and it's going to be a whole lot of happiness for others. So we'll see what will happen next week, because definitely one way or another next week it ends. So we will discuss it then. And talking about teams or Constructors' Championship, Williams has now secured P5, because even mathematically nobody can surpass them anymore. So congrats to Williams. They are in the transition period. They are transitioning internally in the team. They are rebuilding the team. So this is already have some kind of a result. You can see it, P5 now in the constructors. So it's great to see that. And if they have a good car next year, it will be very interesting where they can stack up. And Ferrari is like almost okay. Mathematically, I believe they can still become, or they can finish P3, and in a case that they get everything, let's say first and second, and Red Bull does not get anything, then they can do it. But let's say more likely it's that they will finish P4, Red Bull P3. Mathematically, again, Red Bull can still surpass Mercedes, but then again, both of the Red Bull drivers have to perform and get at least 34 points, and then Mercedes should score 0, which is again very unlikely scenario. Anything can happen, of course, but very, very unlikely. So most likely still Mercedes will be second and Red Bull will remain third in the Constructors' Championship. So that's all from my side for this weekend. I didn't even mention the fact that there was this tire age limit in this race, because it was relevant, don't get me wrong, and because of this limit I believe that McLaren lost, because without this limit they could be able to stretch out the stint so that they wouldn't have to pit or do some other things with the pit stops. But again, it's not relevant in the sense that the same rules apply to everyone, right? So everybody else made it work, McLaren messed it up. So yeah, we can't blame it on these rules, in my opinion. So it's the same rules for everybody, and McLaren just messed up in this critical period of Drivers' Championship. So thank you very much for listening. Let's end it here. Next week, last race of the year. So we'll definitely meet there. I'll reflect, of course, on the Abu Dhabi race, and we'll see who will be our Drivers' Champion. Who will be our Drivers' Champion, and also need to think. Either I look back at my predictions before the season. I haven't checked them since the end of, or since the beginning of the year, as I made them. I don't even remember half of them, or let's say 3/4 of them I don't remember anymore. Or we make another episode. We'll decide and see. It depends probably on how much we'll have to talk about after the Abu Dhabi race. So thank you very much. I'll be back next week. Stay safe. Bye bye.